Hi everyone, I'm Paul Paukinobi, the Director, Africa Mentoring Institute. I want to offer a perspective which can give you some hope on what we are going through. I know you is listening to me, and the whole entire world is being affected by the COVID-19, and the consequences are very drastic that some people are finding it very hard to adjust. But I want to assure you that anything which is a crisis at one time, it becomes an opportunity. And so this afternoon, I want to give you hope and focus on how you can awaken your leadership in terms of crisis. And I can tell you that your success or failure to get out of this crisis in a very professional way will depend on how you reawaken your leadership potential. You need to know that every one of us has leadership potential, and the way you respond to the crisis and in terms of its success will depend on how much you have amassed a lot of energy and qualities of leadership within you so that you can be able to solve this crisis. And I can tell you, if you want to be able to manage crisis, you need to know the ins and out of leadership. What do I mean when I talk of leadership? What do I mean? I mean leadership is the ability to solve problems, and at the end of it all, influence people and society in order to move from one undesirable situation to a better one. So the awakening of leadership is from within. The way you see things, the way you articulate things, the way you encourage yourself, the way you see far, and the way you deal with it deep inside your brain. And so when I talk about leadership as important in this COVID crisis, I'm looking at the way how you see yourself, how you see the situation, and how are you able to see in the future. If you want to solve this problem, this crisis we are in, you need to see it from the beginning. You see how are you going to solve it, and you see the future. And so it calls having alternatives. Which alternatives do I have? Which alternative do I need to give? What are the major issues which I need to think about? What are the ins and outs? What period are we in? And I can tell you, in terms of emergence of crises, there are different types of crises. There are those crises which are routine, those which we are used. For example, HIV crisis, inflation, weather changes, the tornadoes, a lot of rain coming in. Those are crises we are used on, but they are what we call crisis emergencies, those which we have not thought about it, we have not thought about, and they have come unintendingly, and we need to calling us to adjust so that we can be able to solve this problem. And these ones will depend on your own leadership abilities and my own leadership abilities. And so what do we need to do in this COVID-19, because it falls into this crisis which is emerging? One of the things we need to think about is to ask ourselves, what is the problem? What is it, all this emergency? And go deep to diagnose it. Look at how has it come? What are the aspects which have led it to come? What are the major problems? Let's go deep. What has COVID caused us? And how are we feeling? And if you begin to think about this, you'll find out that This crisis has brought in an aspect which we have never thought. And one of it is fear and panic. Fear and panic. Most people are not thinking forward. Most people are not able to look at this challenge in a proactive way, in a positive way to solve it, because we are engulfed with fear and panic. And I can tell you, you'll never solve a problem when you are operating under fear and panic. Africans need to know that it is very important, wherever there is a crisis, to think in peace, to be sober. And when we become sober, we can be able to open our minds and we begin to see things in a different way. And so this crisis has brought in fear. Most people are under fear and panic. This crisis has brought in issues of loss of jobs. Some people have lost jobs, some others are in fear of losing jobs. This crisis has brought in the concept of lack of money, because all businesses are closed. Virtually, majority of the businesses are closed. And so someone may think, oh my God, my business has closed. Where will I get the food to eat? Where will I go to get rent? How am I going to pay school fees? And you find that you are under fear. And if you stay under that fear, you are just going to be imprisoned. The concept of anger, the concept of emotions being affected. You find at the end of it all, if you cannot do something for the family, you find out that you begin to have issues of domestic violence. And so if we begin to think about COVID and its effect on us, then you find out that we need to call for a lot of leadership abilities which need to be rejuvenated. And as leaders, we need to clearly identify the problem we are trying to solve. One of the challenges which stop people from moving out of crises is failure to solve a problem. So we need to identify what is our current problem. What is our current problem? Apart from the major problem of the disease, which this virus which has made us to stay at home. What is our current problem? What is your current problem? I can tell you that it is very important to be positive about crisis, because crisis, much as they bring one aspect of fear, of problems, and the other side, wherever there is a crisis, there is an opportunity. And so much as there is a section of problems which have accompanied COVID-19, there are more opportunities which have been opened. And so we need to shift, you need to shift your mind from the problems of COVID to opportunities of COVID. And when you do this, you begin to plan well. As a good leader, for good leaders, work hard in hard times. As a good leader, you need to address the problem by looking at opportunities. We work on opportunities. We don't work through excuses. We work through opportunities, not excuses. What is confusing you? Sometimes this is an aspect we need to think about. Crises help us to clarify things which have not been clear for a long period of time. Actually, we find out that during this crisis, there are things now you begin to see clearly. where you say, I would have done this instead of doing this. For example, you can say, I've been spending money on things which are not serious. I would have concentrated on this and I build this so that by now I may have a clear income. And so it is something to think about. As leaders, we need to look at those opportunities, how they work, not excuses. And it becomes clear during crises. Some opportunities are financial. Things we can do, businesses we can do, business we can sell out. Some others are people-oriented, day-to-day needs. You have seen companies which have shifted their business chain. In Masaka, there was a man who was selling clothes, and when things changed and the president said that we need only shops with food stuff, he had just to remove clothes and bring food stuff, and now he has benefited a lot. So we need to see opportunities. Airlines have moved from passenger to cargo. We begin to see businesses which can work. As leaders, we need to clearly define that in order to avoid depression, in order to avoid the compound effect of this problem of COVID. And so we, as we look at the challenges which COVID is bringing versus opportunities, we shouldn't get worried, because wherever there is a crisis, there is an opportunity. So what is the way forward? Let's think at what we can focus on. Let's try to analyze the problem and see the opportunities which are there, and begin to focus on those we have control about. Those we don't have control about, cascade them for a long-term planning. You need to plan, to think in a long term, but implement short aspects which are going to help you to gain momentum. As you solve one crisis, you are going to find out that you are getting new levels of innovation, creativity, and adaptability. In this crisis, if you have solved the issue of shelter, you have solved the issue of food, begin to think of what can bring daily income. And as you think of daily income, we are going to move slowly by slowly to other levels of economy which are going to liberate us. Don't get stuck. Don't get stagnated in the problems of COVID which overwhelm your mind. Deal with what you can, and I can assure you, one time there is no problem which cannot be solved. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm Paul Kinobi, your mentor and coach. I'll come back. We need to solve our problems and we need to move forward. And this is what we need to work on as Ugandans, as Africans, and as guys of all this nation. Thank you very much.